This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Welcome, everybody. We're back here at Resonance, the podcast. Steve Azar, Randy Harrington, and myself joining you here today. As you can tell from Steve and I, today's Ash Wednesday, so we're recording this one on Ash Wednesday. And today what I want to do is we're going to shift a little bit. We've talked a lot about some of the things going on in the world and leadership and all those kinds of things over the last few episodes. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to move now and talk a little bit about some of Steve's music. And we're going to start today with one of my favorites, Waitin' on Joe. But before we actually get into the song, Steve, I know that you had a very familiar face do the intro for that song in the music video. Morgan Freeman joined you and has a really interesting kind of conversation to kick off the music video of Waitin' on Joe. So let's start there and let's talk a little bit about maybe kind of tell us the story of how you even got Morgan involved, but then a little bit about the message that he had in the intro to that song.
So that's the song I was writing on piano, first song I've ever attempted on piano. And I was just messing around and I was really sort of poking at my brother who we worked together. And Joe was always 2 hours late, whether he'd never admit it, but 2 hours late. And I was always 2 hours early. We worked together for 20 years. So you can imagine, the pull and pull. And so anyway, I was really messing with him. And then that was all it was, verse 1. But as I was sort of driving one day and I started thinking about the opportunity, the opportunity for the dream that I was working on. And I had so many near misses, so many times it got so close and I was so let down. And when I was growing up, I took that hard. So when I got so close and I was in the record label and I thought they were going to sign me in New York or LA or Nashville or whatever, I took it personal because I knew it was going to be another year before I ever had a shot at getting back to them, right? The door was shut for a while. It wasn't closed forever. But so I started thinking about opportunities of anybody who's graduating high school or getting out of college or just going straight to work. And sometimes because obligations getting in the way or they just want to go to work, or sometimes those things that we all hold dear to us, these passions and things that we're sort of loving when we're growing up, they get shoved aside sometimes for a lifetime, right? And sometimes when you retire, you get to go back and revisit painting or writing or, doing this or that, but life gets in the way. So to me, so Joe became that thing, that opportunity for the dream to happen or not. And I felt like we were at a crossroads there in my life and as a career. And then finally, my Uncle Joe was the mayor of Clarksdale, Mississippi. I was 9 years old when he passed at 33 years old of a long battle of cancer. At 9, from a 9-year-old's perspective, 33 looked like it was, it was sad, but it looked older to me.
Sure.
And as I passed 33 and I wrote, and I had my own 2 children at the time, and the third one on the way, was when I realized, man, I really want to be, my Uncle Joe wasn't around for his son. And he was 5 years old when he passed, and my oldest son was 5. And I just started thinking, man, I just want to be around to see all this and what them develop. And so Joe, the cancer, the train became the metaphor for the cancer. And I started thinking about you're hearing about people getting hit by trains in my hometown when I was a kid. It had been a long time since that happened because the train stopped really rolling through, but those things happened. And then I realized, I said, I was cutting the grass one day and the chorus came to me and I went, oh my God, it's a song. So I really didn't think it was that good. It was so personal to me that I recorded it all on my own in my little studio with a little stupid little box. And I played it for my producer and he said, Steve, this is what we need. And I said, what? And he goes, I said, you're crazy. So I just left it. All of a sudden, I get a call from the head of Mercury Records, Keith Stegall, who was, Zach Brown, Alan Jackson, all these. He's a phenomenal producer. The last guy in the world I thought I'd get a call from, seriously. And he said, what's this Waitin On Joe thing? And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, Rafe played it. My producer played it for him. I said, I was embarrassed because it was me making all the noise. It wasn't big producers and all that. And he goes, and big studios and all that. And I mixed it myself and playing piano. And he's a piano player. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. He goes, no, this is what you had to do. This is the greatest thing that you've ever done. And this, you finally let me know who you were. And this is going to be the beginning of you realizing who you are. And we're signing you. And I went, are you kidding me? So long story short, we finally we get on the label, and I Don't Have to Be Me Till Monday does its thing. It gets way up to number 2 in the charts. Video goes number 1 and it's doing great and all that. So following up with Waitin On Joe, Morgan had moved back to Charleston, Mississippi. And we had this stupid idea. I said, I got to write a narrative that's going to explain what was going on, because it's not linear. The song isn't about one thing happening. It's multiple things. And somehow I've got to let Morgan at least express patience, express those things, those dreams, that because they matter so much to you and you may never get to hold on to them or do them. And so I wrote the narrative and I just sent it with the song, thinking I'd never hear back. And we did hear back, and Morgan loved the song. He said it mattered, and he said that he wanted to be in the video. And since then, of course, Morgan and I have become friends. We've done a lot of stuff together. And what an ultimate wonderful gift for me, for him to do that. The video goes number 1. It was up for a big award and all that stuff. But the bottom line was, I mean, for him to do that, it really, it changed the, what do you call it? Give me not just the direction, but trajectory, exactly, of my entire career.
Yep.
My entire career. So what a gift, right?
No kidding. Yep.
It was elegantly
Randy.
done, too. Very elegantly done.
Shot in our hometown, around our hometown in Clarksdale, where Morgan had opened Ground Zero Blues Club.
Right.
So he was on the rocking chair in front of the club. So we did it, played a show that night. But the church and everything that you saw, Jim's Cafe is where my country trail marker is. All those places, that railroad track, all those things, those were the visuals in my mind. And guys, in my first attempt in the mid-90s, they had some girl on skates sprinkling magic dust to one of my songs because I had nothing to do with writing the video treatments. And I said, after that, it's never going to happen again. You write the song, you need to write the video treatment. I started deciding I'm writing everything. And then we don't need somebody to do that ever again, because it had nothing to do with the song, and the emotion behind it. So I wanted this to be as real as everything that was on my mind, because I felt like it had to be. Of course, we turned it into more a linear thing, but Morgan's message to me said it all and summed it all. If you don't know the story, it works. If you do know the story, it works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you can watch it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, what a gift, man. What a gift. What a wonderful man. This man is beautiful. He's a great soul, great guy.
Still producing as we speak.
Still going. We were on the golf course one day, and he said, we were talking, and he had his first success when I had my first. We were both 37. I'm pretty sure that we were around the same age, but I think we were both 37, or maybe he was 38. He was Easy Reader on Electric Company. And he said it took so long for it to finally start adding up and being able to really know that you had a real career in front of you forever.
Right.
It took me that long too. And I was like, because we were always, you had both feet in, but you were, like Morgan said, we were struggling, because you'd go through phases with different musicians for me, and then they would literally die off or literally do something crazy or whatever. It just couldn't last. It just didn't last. And then you found yourself again with nothing. And then you had to restart. And he had a lot of those similar things happen in his career. So Morgan said, I'm not stopping now. And I told him, I'm not stopping now. So it was interesting that we both sort of shared that same feeling about it took us forever to get there. And we were working hard, but now that once it officially happened on a big enough stage to last, and you'd have to keep working at your craft to keep it going. But at least we were put in a situation where now it's up to us to continue to work. What the highway has been paved.
How has Waitin On Joe surprised you all these years later in terms of its own life journey? It's got its own personality out there, and how do you
Yeah.
reflect on that?
Well, I've had a lot of stories along the way. I have this bracelet I wear every once in a while. I went to a military base in Clarksville, Tennessee to do a show, and it was a sea of people out there. I remember that. But backstage were these 4 guys, and they were in uniform, and they said, "Hey, Steve, we wanted to meet you at my meet and greet, and we wanted to give you something." And it had 5 names on this bracelet. 4 of them were included and 1 of them not. And they said, before we went into battle, all 5 of us would listen to Waitin' on Joe. And they lost one of their friends, and he's obviously owned the thing. And I
Wow.
said, how can that impact like that? We started getting, back then there was no way of shooting emails to each other. Not really yet. It was 2002 or 3. So it wasn't like
Right.
we were getting real letters.
Right.
And Gwen, my wife Gwen, created a book of a lot of these letters from people, how Waitin' on Joe affected their life. And there were so many different ways that it touched people that I was like, how could that song do that for them? And it was so touching. And there were a loss of family members. There were literally named Joe, but there were so many other things that people were able to insert it into their pain and their sorrow. And for some reason, the song, as sad as it seemed and was, it helped them get over their pain. And every one of them had that same message. So that over my career, it's been that way. And people hear it for the first time, obviously with my resident show for Viking now here in Greenville, Cruise Line, it's up there on the wall. Before I come out, it's Morgan doing the intro, because it's what created me, and created the honest me. It was set the path forward for me to go, that's what I have to do now and be now, because that's who I am. And so it's a very moving moment in the show. People are always gravitating toward it. I get to tell the story of it like I'm telling now. And it's an honest thing. It's real. There's nothing made up about it. It's great to be able to have the time and not be at the mercy of a clock, and know that I get to tell this story. And with every song that I do about Mississippi and about my roots and all that, they're on part of the show, and mixed in with a few hits. But yeah, I can't explain. I got an email the other day about Waitin' on Joe. They said we had never heard it, and it was the most impactful song they've heard in the last 30 years of their life. And they said it was like medicine to them, and they've been listening to it over and over. And every time they listen to it, they cry, but then they get happy. And so this was just last week, and I'm going like, I've had grown men cry on my shoulder at the show because of that song.
Mhm.
And well, it was a big part. They would bring it up, but there was other things about the show, but I'm going like, it's like, it's just so beautiful to me. Guys, if I could only explain, how did this happen? I was working really hard. Waitin' on Joe each verse was never a thought. It just blew out of me, right? Until the chorus sort of came to me. And then that was more of a thoughtful thing, like going, oh, I guess I'll put that there, then it's going to make all of them connect. But I still saw all 3 verses totally separated from each other. And that's why I wanted to do the narrative. Once Morgan did the narrative, like Shawshank Redemption, the song actually made sense to me both ways.
Right.
Like it just, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I like it. It keeps me going when I hear people are moved by it. And in their own way, they're using it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good testimony of how video can complement. And
Yeah.
and I think the other piece that I always like to pull out about your music is place is so important.
Right.
And so there's really this profound sense of vibe and location that you get from the video. If you haven't seen the video, by all means, go check it out. It's well worth it. And then the other piece that I like about it, though, is that feeling of sad story that is resolved by community, that is resolved by the compassion of the people in the restaurant, and just the sort of slow-mo montage of experience of tragedy and this fusion. It's like, as tragedy unfolds, so does the potential of family and community and everything else, and you really see it in the video. And I think that's when the ball went over the fence in that video.
You want to hear something that, to me, as I look back on it all, and the gift that keeps on giving, like to Strack, our oldest son, the filmmaker. We moved back home. So Strack was in the video at 5 years old. He played my uncle's son, right? Or Joe's son in the video. Long story short, all those years, there were all these people in the video that were doing the theatrical thing here, right? And when Strack came back and moved here, they gravitated towards track. And all of a sudden, he's in all these films, like these short films. He's winning the Tupelo Film Festival and the American Film Festival, all this stuff. And these people are in his video. But then when he made his movie and he brought real actors in, he used them again. So he was in the Waitin' on Joe video with them, and then turned the page forward all those years later, and they're in his movie that's on Amazon Prime. It's just like, it's like, how could that happen? And we weren't living here at the time. You know, we had moved here years later, 10 years later after the video was shot, we moved back. But I always think that, man, was that all just meant to happen? And we were walking into the future for him. And I just think that that's just the way life works when you get to live enough of it.
And Mike, I know you picked this song too because it resonates in a uniquely Benedictine way, doesn't it?
Right. And, you know, it's interesting. I love the idea that we're constantly waiting. You know, I mean, Steve and I have our ashes on our head, you know, today, and we've been to Mass this morning, and Lent brings us that time of waiting, of preparation, you know, as we get closer to Easter. But what's interesting with the song for me is the fact that it's that message that says, I'm going to continue to wait. I'm going to continue to wait. I'm going to continue to wait. And how many times I think so as we transition this to, you know, the idea of leadership and people, how many times do we not wait? How many times do we give up? Do we lose patience and go chase something else? You know, and miss out on opportunities and those kinds of things. And so I think, you know, what really resonates to me in the song is this idea that we're going to continue to wait. We're going to continue to have hope. We're going to continue to look at this idea that says sooner or later Joe's coming. And, you know, and yeah, I'm aggravated as heck that he's not here, but I'm going to continue to wait. I'm going to continue to have patience. I'm going to continue to pursue hope that he's going to be here. And I think that's the message from a leadership perspective that I look at to say, what is it that we're doing today that maybe we're not having patience with, that maybe we're not waiting. We're ready to say to heck with it. We're moving on. We're going to the next thing, when in reality, we should wait and we should hold out hope, because there are some things that are happening that we can't just walk away from and go to something.
Do y'all know that patience to me was my most difficult virtue to
Really? That's completely surprising, Steve.
Knock me over with a feather.
But the fact is, I end up writing about it, and I've written about it in other songs too. I wrote about a bunch of songs about the waiting process, and then how difficult it was for me just to help myself. But then Waitin' on Joe came out, and that was the one I'd been waiting on, pardon the pun. But you say all this and you talk about this. Patience is a difficult thing for a lot of people. And especially when you're in a workforce, probably, you know, with my guys in my band, and there's a lot of things that I'm going like, guys, we can't be late for things. We can't be, you know, that is just simple as that. Be on time. Right. And I feel like it's very rude to not show when everybody else is showing. So especially, I mean, you imagine the drummer doesn't show up on stage while we're going on stage. Where's he at? Is he in the bathroom? What's going on? Right? Like, you should have taken care of that earlier. But I just think, don't y'all think that patience is, even in the workplace, even with your family life, anything you're doing in life, isn't it a hard one? Isn't that a hard one to
yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, I don't think there's any question that the idea of patience, I mean, you know, it's certainly something, and I look at it from a standpoint a little bit differently. Steve, you look at it from a standpoint of somebody not being on time to do something. I look at it from a standpoint of patience being waiting and allowing for time to happen. Versus, you know, getting, you know, somebody's late for this or that. And we all get aggravated with that. I don't think there's any question about that. But the idea of letting time play out, the idea of having the patience.
Baker,
yeah.
If you bake bread, you are patient.
Exactly.
The bread is going to do what the bread is going to do.
But ever since especially you, Mike, in the monk principles and all that, you don't think that I've not seen the other side of patience with you and Randy as well. You've taught me another whole side of it that I have not thought about, but I have learned to use. And I have. And as somebody that loves to be in the kitchen and cook, that patience is awesome. How long it takes to do everything right.
Right.
You know? and watching it all come together, but you're getting to see progress,
Right. Right.
right?
But sometimes you are and sometimes you're not. I mean, you might be cooking something that should have been done. I mean, even the Thanksgiving turkey, for God's sake, this thing should have been done in 3.5 hours, and we're 4.5 hours into it, and it's still not done. What the heck is going on here?
But so take us in the work world, guys. Randy, you want to start? Take us when you're going into one of your clients and you see that they seem to be in a hurry, jumping the gun, getting too fast on things. If they would have just waited, those things may have come to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah. So I studied, I was an apprentice to a guy about 1,000 years ago. I believe his name was Bern Ho. He was a facilitator. He's no longer with us. Interesting guy. He was one of those guys, Mike, who would facilitate a session. He had a tackle box that had markers in it. And he was that guy, with the flip charts.
Never met a whiteboard he didn't like.
So I go up with him, and he was going to hand off a client to me. And I watched him work with this client. And I swear to God, we were in the room for 4 hours with this board or senior team or whatever they were. And I think he said maybe 5 words the whole time. It was remarkable. He would maybe put a question up there and then he would just sit. And I was floored by the whole thing. I was just like, oh my gosh. Well, suffice to say, I think he sat a little too much. But I did figure out, like 5 years, 7 years later, there's a difference between being patient and being still.
Absolutely.
And that's a subtle but very powerful thing, because when you're still, then other stuff comes out. And usually it's more authentic and it's more real. So if you're really trying to understand a group, or you're trying to lead, you're trying to get the mind of the people that you're engaged with for whatever reason, stillness is this superpower, man. And leaders that can switch it on and off like that, it's just remarkable, because they get still and then all of a sudden truth comes out,
Right. Yeah.
just bubbles up. So I think when you begin to appreciate that, it changes tempo. It allows you to modulate tempo.
Yeah.
It gives you a counterpoint. So boom, 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 stop, really stop.
I'm really struggling right now.
Right. But that's because it's so when you want to, but by stopping, you begin to understand action. Let me lay one more bombshell on you. Kenneth Burke made a big distinction between 2 words, action and motion. Motion is the planets in the heavens. Motion is a leaf falling off a tree. Motion is the waves on the beach. Motion is what happens without intention. Action requires intention. And so I've seen a very powerful person at Microsoft would say something like, let's get the motion of the room first. Basically what he's saying is, what's actually going on here that isn't about us causing it? What is the environment we are going into? It's like when you walk on a boat, you adjust your footing to the boat. And after an hour or 2, you're walking just fine. And then you get off the boat. Now you're walking like an idiot, because that's what's so this idea of motion and action, I think, is really an important thing. Motion is a way for you to get in touch with place, with vibe, with orientation. It allows you to fit in to the world around you, to co-emerge with the world around you. And then action is clear, because it is driven exclusively by intent. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? What is the effect you expect to get? I was on a call yesterday with a person, and they were furious at an employee because the employee had sent out an email to all of their customers, thousands of people. And her question was, why, what did you expect to have happen? And he said, well, I wasn't sure.
God.
I was like, okay, this is a bad thing, right? We have to undo this. We have to reel this back in. So the point I'm trying to make is, when you start talking about patience, what you're really talking about is patience in a system. You're talking about cause and effect. And one of the first things you can do is just pause all of the intentional stuff for a second, and then stop and look, wait and see. I like to tell the story that my wife and I scuba dive. I'm the laziest scuba diver in the world. I will get in the water. I will go to the little place I want to go, by the little reef head or whatever it is. I will get as still as I can possibly be. I'll slow my respiration rate as slow as I can make it, so I can get more bottom time. And then I just get still. and then the fish come to me. When you're scubaing around, you don't see squat. Fish are gone. You're just this monstrous thing snorkeling around there, you know? But when you get still, they will come to you, and it's freaky how they will come to you. It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
It's interesting. It's interesting you talk about this idea of action and intention. Benedict talks about moving with composure, so that we constantly are moving and we're aware of this movement and we're doing it intentionally. It's not just some reactive thing that we're doing. It's not just going off willy-nilly and chasing something. We move with composure in order to maintain that idea that when we need stillness, when we need that time to just quiet and stop, if we're moving with composure, it's easy to do that. You look at the Benedictine idea of rhythm and the way that their day unfolds. It goes from prayer to meal, to work, to prayer. And it's that moving with composure, understanding the rhythm of the day as they go through that, so that everything is done intentionally, but everything is done with composure. It's not, it's not coming off the rails.
In martial arts, in katas or forms, in between, let's say a front kick and a side kick, you might have 3 steps. Well, all 3 of those steps in between are all equally balanced. There's no point in the movement, if you're doing it correctly, where there is an imbalance, because there's vulnerability at that point, right? And so this idea of moving with that sense of coherence and integrity of intent all the way through everything, I think is a very powerful thought. And it's the same way of saying, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, I believe that the quality of the restaurant can be measured by what happens when the restaurant is closed, as much as by when it is open. In other words, how one of my favorite moments of watching a woman who was a restaurant owner, she came in on a Sunday morning early, ahead of her wait staff and her cleaning staff, because she liked to clean the kitchen first on Sunday morning. And I was talking to her and I said, "Why are you here?" And she goes, "This is church." And she's just cleaning this, the silver tops and whatnot. And it was a beautiful thing to watch, because that was her moment of stillness. And so the quality of that restaurant to me was her being there at 6:00 in the morning for a 4 p.m. service that day, cleaning before everybody else got in. That's what's going on. So anyway, all of this stuff that we're talking about, though, is the space that allows something to happen. It's the stillness that draws attention to the action. So it's these counterpoints. And as a musician, this is what Waitin' on Joe is all about. It's hitting those tension points again and again, both in the heart and soul, but also musically.
For you guys, business-wise, in y'all's world, as for me personally, and for me with a lot of my friends who were on this journey and having to be patient, but working. So let's get back to this. You got to be working while you're patient. I mean, if you got to get better at it, and you got to keep doing it, because you got to keep doing it, and you got to be both feet in, both arms in, heart, soul, mind, everything. You cannot be going like this is a side thing, not to attempt to do it forever. You just, maybe some people get away with it, but 99.9999% do not. They can't. So I always see it as, now that I get in hindsight in my life, in the rearview mirror, there were so many places in my life and my friend's life, in our business, that we came so close to stopping and turning around and going home.
Yeah.
Packing it up. But then you were such at a crossroads. You didn't know you were there. So you don't know that just past this spot, whether it's straight ahead or the left or right turn, whatever it is, just past this. Like you're talking about this much was so much waiting for you that had to happen in your career to advance it. And it gave you hope, for sure. And you were going, man, if I'd have stopped, or man, if I'd have quit, what just happened? And a lot of times it definitely was, I could feel it, that it wasn't in my hands, and that I was trying to plan my grand scheme of my life out in front of me. And I had, like, it was written down. And most of that stuff that was written down didn't happen in my timely fashion. Right. But a lot of it did happen to me, for me personally, in God's plan. That's the faith that I believe in. And I've seen some things that happened along the way that gave me even more faith each time I got to that pivotal point when I go, oh, I didn't stop then, maybe on the other side of this, tomorrow morning when I wake up, there's going to be a major highway that in my career that's been paved, and here we go. And dang it, if it didn't happen every time. I didn't realize how much highway I was going to have to go through before I started having the success, before I wrote Waitin' on Joe. I mean, there was a lot of track behind me, but as I could go from gravel and potholes and just bad pavement and all that, and once you got this big, beautiful highway that just got paved, with the big, beautiful lines, in my mind, that's how I saw advancement when I was off of these bumpy roads. And that's how I saw my career. I literally saw it as a highway. I got to get on the interstate where you can go 80 and you can, you know what I mean? And you're not going to hit boom, 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 boom. Your car's going to drive so smooth, and which was reflective or sort of my life would be so smooth. And so looking back, and a lot of my friends we've had these discussions and go like, can you believe that we were all on the same path at different places on this, you were talking about this highway, and looking for that perfect.
I think I can agree 1,000% that impermanence is the nature of the world, right? That if you're going through a tough time, it's going to change. If you're going through a great time, it's going to change. I mean, those are the things that I have taken away as big lessons. It's like, I can't remember exactly where the term was. I want to say it's Indian, but the word is anitya, and it means more or less this too shall pass. But in a like with a gong behind it. It's like, no matter how rigorous what you're dealing with is, it's changing, it's dynamic. And so one of the places where I feel like there's power in the world is when you are able to be still enough to see the small changes that are taking place around you. And, when you have that moment where you stop and you see the hummingbird on the hummingbird feeder, or you stop and you notice, wow, that flower was not here this morning, and I'm now out here this afternoon, and there it is. So all kind of stuff is going on all the time. I'm just not aware of it. I'm not perceiving it. And so when you can take that step back and just like really appreciate how dynamic everything is, by the way,
there you go. You got it.
Look at that.
Hey, let me shake it up real quick, because it is. And now show it.
Yeah,
better.
there we go. Look at that.
Yeah, you give it a good
nutrition. This is a nutritional shake in the morning. But at some level, we could say, and we would be correct, that this Bloody Mary mix is actively being Bloody Mary mix right now. It's busy right this second, biochemically.
Yeah,
it's ready. It's ready to go. And I don't know what the expiration date on this is, but in 15 years,
18 months.
Okay, we'll give it 15 years, and we'll say 15 years from now, maybe it wouldn't be quite as good as it is today. Although with the right amount of vodka, it probably wouldn't be a problem even then. But my point I'm trying to make is that even though we don't see something being, it is being. And there's something remarkable that happens when we allow ourselves to slow down and watch nature in particular do its thing and take care of itself and change the continents and do all the things and the orbital patterns of the universe. The key here is dynamics. Impermanence are where you have to, those are the seams you have to work in. And that's the story being told in Waitin' on Joe. That's the story with the railways. That's the story with the river, that beautiful scene at the end. And that wasn't lost on me either, that connection between those two modalities and the profound nature of the Mississippi River there. But the life happening in and amidst all this motion, again, all the stuff that's going on out there that we have to fall into and fit into.
Mike, let me just say this. River, there's something that happens to me that my temperature, I get real still, as you keep guys talking about, when I go out and I see the river. And not only getting right about it, I've written so many songs there or because of it or about it. Something happens to me. And I know water does things for people. They run to the water, to the beach and all this and stuff. But water can be violent as well. And so can that river. So, but it's mysterious to me. But it's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. And change is constantly happening, like you bring up. I've never thought about the flower about to bloom and all these things that are about to happen. And Mike, just wanted to just go there for a second before you jump in.
Well, I think there's a couple of distinctions here. Number one, there's a difference between stillness and inertia.
Yes. Good one.
The inertia is when we're paralyzed to move, and stillness is when we're getting ready to move and we're acknowledging and being cognizant of the world around us. So two very different things. I had the opportunity 100 years ago when I was in the Air Force to work on the SR-71 Blackbird.
Oh my.
And this plane was incredible, but when it was sitting on the ground, it was a wreck. It was leaking fluid all over the place and that kind of thing. But you get that thing up in the air going Mach 2, and all the seams would seal up, and it was sleek, and it was a bullet going through the air. But it needed that action. Einstein says nothing happens until something moves, and that idea that says we take that stillness, but then we take that stillness and move. So Randy, your 3 steps in the martial arts, that 3 steps is sort of that stillness aspect, but then you
Yes.
move to the next action, and I think that's the thing, the difference between inertia, where we're paralyzed. We talk about analysis paralysis, and we see that with leaders all the time and with people all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're at stillness is something that says, I know that the next thing that's going to happen is action, but I'm going to
Yeah.
take that pause. So, you guys have heard me talk about Statio and the Benedictines taking that pause before they go do something, whether it's prayer or work or whatever. That's that moment of stillness. But they also know that with the rhythm of the day, something else is going to happen after that. We're not going to just sit around and think about doing something and be paralyzed to do something. We're going to actually move to the next thing. And I think from a leadership perspective, it's really important that we understand that what we're not suggesting a leader should do is sit around and ponder something all day. What we're doing is what we're talking about is being cognizant of what's going on around you.
Exactly.
Be cognizant of what it is that you're dealing with. Take that moment, take that pause, and then move on to action, because nothing happens until something moves.
It's an awareness thing. It's awareness. It's about I'm understanding where I am in this complex system that I'm in. And I am in a complex system, no matter what system I'm in. It's an aware step.
And
Well,
and I love your idea of the river, Steve, because the river's constantly changing. You
Yeah.
can go out there right now and you're going to see
brand
something.
new every
You
time.
can go out there an hour from now and you're going to see something completely different. One of my
Brand
favorite
new.
places. Yeah, one of my favorite places in the world is the North Shore of Lake Superior.
Yeah.
And it's constantly changing. The water is constantly changing it, whether it's calm, whether there's, 30-foot waves on it or whatever the case may be. It's constantly changing. And I think that's the mesmerizing thing of being around water, whether it's the ocean or a lake or a river or whatever the case may be. But we also understand that it's change, that it constantly keeps moving. Again, it's that action aspect of it. There's something happening and something's moving in order for things to move, to change, and that kind of thing.
The ultimate patience is watching a towboat pull his largest, right? It's going against the wind and against the current and all that. And
Yep.
it's just moving so gracefully and
Yep.
just right on time. And from a person that's not on the boat, that's watching it go by, it's like the first time I've ever seen it every time one goes by. It's like, you just look, I take pictures, or just in my mind, or if I've got my phone, I'm going, how good of a picture can I capture this moment? And pictures don't do it justice.
Right.
But it is, every time I see it, it's like the first time. And
Yep.
you imagine how patient those guys have to be when they're fighting the current, right? And
Right.
the rivers and all this other stuff, and the river. Anyway, I think we got to wrap it up. But Mike, you want to
Yep.
take us home?
Randy, why don't you take us home? I
You
opened
bet.
it.
You bet. So, I mean, we started talking about Waitin' on Joe, and we started talking about Morgan Freeman's introduction. And what we discovered from that is that the song functions in place, and setting that scene really opened up all the potential of that wonderful story that Waitin' on Joe tells. We also found out that Waitin' on Joe is a whole stack of metaphors layered on top of them. For Steve writing it, the train was cancer. This moment in time was a measure of your whole career. So when we listen to music, what we're really doing is we're applying our own sense of value and meaning and spiritual quest into the music. And that's why so many people have resonated so strongly with Waiting on Joe over the years. And they will continue to do that. I'll be delighted that my granddaughter is going to listen to that song in 5 years and go, that's a great song, and have never heard it before. So what we're really talking about is becoming more full human beings through the experience and engagement with music. And in so doing, being more present, more aware, and potentially more still, more quiet, more willing to let the voices around them be heard, but also very clear about action that needs to be taken, right? That's what we're talking about here. Some serious business on Resonance, the way we like to do things.
Never thought I'd be talking to you guys on this show about that, when you wrote it, and these are the little nuggets of love that I get to appreciate. I'm very grateful for you guys even wanting to share that. What a day. ResonanceLeader.com, right? You can check out everywhere you stream, and you can also see
Waiting on Joe is on top of the list. If you go to Apple Music or Spotify for Steve Azar, you'll see it right away.
Yeah, the video's on my YouTube channel as well and all that. But yes. And so on behalf of Mike, the Monk Guy Farrell, Randy Harrington, and myself, Steve Azar, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget, there's a live version. We get on airplanes and come to you, and it'll be pretty awesome. Yeah, and drink that Bloody Mary. It's pretty good. Later on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.